Europe was still reeling from the shock of the Franco-British victories. Brussels had been liberated, Edinburgh reclaimed, Germany's forces expelled from the Isles. For the first time since the conflict began, Germany had suffered losses it could not easily explain away. But while France and the United Kingdom celebrated cautiously, a darker understanding was spreading through military circles. Germany's silence was not weakness, it was preparation. Paris knew it. London knew it. France was unwilling to let that happen. They decided the time for reacting was over. The time for acting had arrived. A message flew north, crossing borders in encrypted corridors. Paris to Copenhagen, Northern Alliance. We move now. Strike with us. Denmark read it, understood it, and responded with a clarity that France had hoped for. Copenhagen, Paris. We stand with you. Our forces will move. Another message went west. Paris to London. Your offensive must begin. Rotterdam cannot remain in their hands. London's reply came quickly. London, Paris. Agreed. We'll move with you. Set your time. And just like that, a coordinated three-front offensive began to take shape. One that would stretch Germany across hundreds of kilometers of front line. France would attack from the Rhine corridor, pushing deep into western Germany. The Northern Alliance, Denmark and its military partners, would strike from the north. The United Kingdom would move on Rotterdam in an attempt to liberate the Netherlands and break Germany's grip on the North Sea coast. 3 offensives, 1 moment, 1 purpose: to force Germany to either fight everywhere or fall somewhere. This time, there were no slow build-ups or dramatic announcements. French armored formations and mechanized brigades were already positioned along the Rhine from previous operations. So when the order came, France advanced. The ground shook as French armored formations crossed into German-held territory. Mechanized infantry followed close behind, and artillery units rolled into their pre-planned firing positions. It took minutes, not hours, for the first exchanges to begin. The German defenders were waiting. Units stationed near the Rhine were well fortified, dug in behind layers of defensive lines built during the earlier stages of the conflict. They held strong points in towns, industrial zones, riverbanks, and hills, overlooking key crossing points. The first clash detonated like a thunderclap. A continuous battle erupted along the river. France pushed across multiple crossing sites simultaneously, using coordinated barrages and overwhelming coordination to break German defensive pockets. German units responded with fierce counterattacks, trying to fracture French spearheads before they could consolidate. Entire districts became war zones of smoke, fire, and ruptured terrain. But the French offensive didn't slow. Every hour, another ridge fell, another defensive line collapsed, another tactical advantage shifted their way. The resistance was fierce, disciplined, organized, but ultimately outmatched. France had committed too many formations for Germany to contain. As the fighting moved deeper inland, the intensity increased. Infantry traded fire across barricades and intersections. Smoke blanketed entire neighborhoods as artillery worked in synchronized waves and engineers opened lanes for follow-on forces. The defenders fought hard. They made France pay for every meter. But they simply couldn't stop the momentum. After several days of non-stop pressure, Germany's tactical situation broke open. Their lines buckled. Their control of the region faltered. France surged forward, pushing past the outer defenses, capturing supply nodes, and forcing German battalions into full retreat. By the end, France secured the entire region and advanced all the way towards Stuttgart, a breakthrough that stunned Europe. Germany had underestimated the scale and speed of the French offensive, and now the consequences were clear. While France pushed deep into western Germany, the Northern Front ignited. The Northern Alliance, primarily Denmark backed by regional partners and Nordic logistics, launched their attack southward toward Hamburg. Their goal was to strike quickly, overwhelm northern German defenses, and force Germany to split its resources even further. But the north was not undefended. Hamburg had been transformed into a dense military hub filled with personnel, armor, artillery, and entrenched defensive structures. When the Northern Alliance crossed the border, they collided head-on with one of the densest concentrations of German troops in the entire conflict. The battle was immediate and brutal. German forces counterattacked aggressively, using every advantage of terrain and preparedness. Armor emerged from hardened shelters, artillery pounded the open fields, infantry executed coordinated flanking maneuvers. The Northern Alliance fought bravely, but the pressure was overwhelming. Within hours, the northern advance stalled. The road south from Denmark became a corridor of smoke and burning vehicles. Small towns and farmland turned into kill zones as German firepower hammered the advancing Nordic units. Every attempt to regain momentum was met with overwhelming resistance. Logistical strains soon followed. Supply convoys were delayed, ammunition ran short, and local reinforcements were slow to arrive. Despite their determination, the Northern Alliance couldn't break through. Slowly, painfully, they were pushed back toward their own border. The offensive collapsed into a fighting withdrawal, forcing Denmark to shift back into a defensive posture and buy time to reorganize. While the North faltered, the Western Front was still pressing, and now it was the United Kingdom's turn to strike. Their target, Rotterdam. Retaking the Netherlands from the south meant hitting German lines from Belgium. UK land forces, coordinated with Belgian resistance elements and supported by naval assets offshore trying to interdict reinforcements at the harbor, advanced across the border into southern Netherlands. The main fight unfolded on the approaches to the city, farming districts, industrial outskirts, and suburban belts. British mechanized brigades and infantry pushed along the southern axis, clearing entrenched positions, while Royal Navy units attempted to block German resupply by sea. As they moved north, German defenders fought stubbornly. Defensive belts on the outskirts had been prepared to channel assaults into kill zones. British forces encountered urbanized defense rings, fortified roadblocks, and anti-armor ambushes that slowed their progress. But the Germans here were stretched thin, their local strength limited compared to the concentration France faced in the west. The UK combined pressure from the south with pointed strikes to disrupt defensive cohesion. The fighting on Rotterdam's outskirts was intense, tactical, and methodical. British troops cleared industrial parks and village clusters, while engineers removed obstacles and opened corridors for logistics. The port itself was contested at sea and at its perimeter, but the decisive fighting occurred along the southern approaches. After sustained and grinding engagements, British forces broke the last organized defensive line. German units, lacking the local depth to hold both inland positions and the port, withdrew into central Germany or abandoned equipment to make their escape. Rotterdam fell. The Netherlands, once occupied, was liberated and secured by nightfall. 3 offensives, 3 outcomes. France surged forward, the Northern Alliance was pushed back, and the UK won decisively in the south. But the victories and losses were overshadowed by what happened next. Because while Europe fought, Germany acted. Berlin sent a short, unexpected message to Warsaw. Germany, Poland, stand with us, form alliance. It was the last thing anyone expected. Poland had risen quickly in the new geopolitical landscape, dominating the Baltic and expanding influence. No one imagined Berlin would reach out to them, and no one expected Poland to respond. Poland, Germany. We accept. In the days that followed, Polish mechanized units began moving toward Germany's eastern frontier, not as invaders, but as allies, preparing to fortify defensive lines and reinforce the German heartland. France watched, the UK watched, the Northern Alliance watched. No one knew what would happen next, but one thing was certain: the war had entered a new phase. The next chapter would test whether coordinated strikes could truly break a prepared adversary, or whether a deeper, more dangerous escalation was about to begin. The continent held its breath once again.